back and forth. Yeah, really wild situation. Google's NVIDIA's at 5.1 trillion market cap and enterprise value, and that cash is 45 billion. We're gonna look at their uses of cash and stuff like that. Let me try something here. Okay, just gonna kind of use this sheet, which probably should be familiar to some of you guys. Let me do like an earnings section. Is this? Okay, can I do like calendar year earnings per share? We'll do like, I guess, 2020. I mean, we should do all the years theoretically. 2020. Let's just do 2025 forward. Don't need to go some more detail for now. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing here with EV to earnings, which is kind of my favorite metric. Enterprise value divided by earnings per share, or enterprise value divided by sort of net income. Let's try that. It's EV to E, really, EV to earnings, but net income and earnings is the same thing. In college, I used to call it NOPAT, net operating profits after tax. You still might hear that sometimes. So anyway, NVIDIA's on a weird fiscal versus calendar. So like theoretically, if you add up all the quarters, they have one more quarter report this year. So their earnings are 8189. No, wait. 8996, 105, 125. 96, 105, 125, 142. That's 468. Very confusing how to do this because if I want to include, I could do the fiscal year too, but I think that's a little unfair because it sort of skews the numbers forward once. So we'll do the April quarter, July quarter, October quarter, and Jan quarter. I mean, I think that's the right balance, but I'm not getting the numbers to add up to the numbers I have here. So, okay, that's sort of right. It's very annoying.
That drug pharmacy dude, Martin, what's his name?
Martin Shkreli.
Shkreli.
Okay, I think this is it, but we'll see how it goes. Now the calculation for EV to impute it from EPS is a little tough because this is EPS. So I need to kind of manipulate it a little bit. I'm going to do enterprise value divided by shares outstanding and then divide that by earnings per share. But I need to do my order of operations correctly here. Still got something wrong here. Let's see. Yes, number of zeros. Maybe even more zeros. Maybe quite a lot of zeros, it looks like. Because this is in full dollars. And this is, they have 24 billion shares outstanding. We're going backwards. J4 divided by, I guess we have to make more parens here. Okay, there we go. 46 times this calendar year. But this calendar year is mostly over, so we don't really care about this calendar year. We're going to freeze J, freeze G, and let the rest go wild. So 32 years next calendar year. I wonder if we should do revenue too. Just to, you know, just to sort of have it. So we'll do revenue, price to sales or EV to sales. And then I want to do revenue growth too. We'll have to leave out the first year because we don't know what it is. Okay, and then we'll make little borders here, pretty little borders. Does not feel like Bob Ross. Happy little trees, happy border right there. He's not happy. Happy little border here. Not too big into how these look, but you know, you got to be presentable at least. And you can actually download this on my GitHub for free. So many people have learned finance from me on Wall Street. It's not even funny. And that's why I'm still able to run a business on Wall Street and still interact with people on Wall Street. I'm just very, very blessed that many of you have my back. And I really appreciate that. You know, when somebody says something bad about me or something like that, you guys jump up and say, no, he did nothing wrong. And I really do appreciate it. That's, you know, I won't take that for granted. All right, so the street continues to raise numbers for NVIDIA to the point where we're pretty... Okay, EV divided by sales is going to be a little easier. Oops. Let's do it like this. Oh, too many borders there. That's not happy border. Again, order of operations, so important when you do these. All right, so 26 times sales. Again, when you have a high margin product, price to sales tends to stop making sense. So just be wary of that. You know, sales or EV to sales in this case, you know, it doesn't really always have to, like that looks crazy, 26 times sales, but when you remember the margins on the product, you realize that, oh, actually, it's basically, you know, 50% net margin. So, all right, let's freeze J, leave Y. And you can see the price to sales drops as the company expects some substantial growth there. Let's calculate said growth. We'll make one happy border here. You know, none of this will really teach you how to be an investment banker. Like that job is, you know, my skill set here and kind of what I teach you is more buy-sider stuff than sell-sider. But there are some other places you can go to if you really want to learn the nitty-gritty of how to make good Excels and PowerPoints and stuff like that. Like on the buy side, that's a little less important. You know, we're mostly trying to make some money. All right. So there's NVIDIA's projected revenue growth. You can see this is Wall Street consensus. Doesn't always mean everything, but You can see the 39% projected growth, 22%, 7, and then 13, reaching about 400 billion in 2029. I think they'll beat that. In fact, again, if you take Jensen at face value, he may do 400 in 2026. Okay? 2026. The street has him doing 400 in 2029. Can you imagine? Now, the problem with NVIDIA isn't, are they doing well? We all know that. The problem is, what's the sustainability, right? That's the main issue. Are they going to be able to actually sustain this for time, time immemorial? And I think, one of the things I want to look at here is actually, believe it or not, Intel. Now, I do want to shout out SemiAnalysis, who's got some really great semiconductor stuff. If you're really serious about semiconductors, you got to read SemiAnalysis. It's worth its weight in gold. It's very cheap, actually. They could be charging 100x what they charge. And in fact, I think you can read it for free, which is crazy. So this is Dylan Patel and his group. And there's no contest. In the past, you would want to read, and I'm not being paid by them. I'm not partnered with them. I'm just calling a spade a spade. You'd want to talk to guys in Asia. You'd want to talk to the big banks on Wall Street. At this point, they really have the game on lock. So we'll probably read some SemiAnalysis. I'm probably going to try to spend an hour on NVIDIA if that works for you. Now, again, when we look at DCFs, we're trying to understand what this is the most important thing to any DCF. Okay, this is the most important thing in investing. Really, is what is the steady state earnings? And how do you define steady state? Well, the reason I call it that is that many companies are not in a steady state. And some companies, by definition, will never be in a steady state. And some people call, instead of steady state, you call maturity. De Mataran has some interesting definitions of this. What's a company at maturity? What's the growth at maturity? And so forth. But, when you have a company that's the products are planned obsolescence, right? This is the V100. This is the A100. This is the H100. This is the B100. Not exactly drawn to scale, but, maybe it's something like this, and so V100, A100, these are NVIDIA chips for anybody that doesn't know the lingo. These are the H100s. This is the B200, and then we have Rubin coming, which we don't know. Maybe Rubin's like this, right? And so you have this planned obsolescence. So what's steady state doesn't make sense here. Whereas for Coca-Cola or something like that, it's a lot easier to value because you can sort of say that, the company, started, had a big growth spurt, and, revenue sort of reached this sort of steady plateau, of small growth. And maybe one day we'll have some decline. We can sort of model this. In calculus, this is called the area under the curve, right? We can just say, well, what's that, right? What's that AUC? What's the discounted AUC of those cash flows? Here, you get something a little different. It's the cyclicality that you have to understand. And the cyclicality is not just the product cycle, it's the business cycle, right? So you have a bunch of different things there. And you have a technology cycle now that's, a little bit difficult to understand. And we're going to try to figure this out, but it's not going to be easy. And it requires some creative thinking. And in some ways, investing is a little like philosophy, where we don't really know where we're going. And part of it was we're trying to scope that out and figure out what to do. Checking back on the market, we got a little bit of a rally in our hated quantum sector here. So I actually want to look at, for a long-term perspective here, I kind of want to look at Intel, and I want to go back, really far back in time for Intel. What the? Okay, Intel stock price has changed quite a bit since I last looked at it. We were relatively bullish on it, so I hope, you know, somebody made some money. Much higher market cap than it once was. Rockets up the list from 140 largest market cap to, say, 61. Good for Intel. They have some net debt, so the enterprise value of the company is actually a little bit higher. 17 in net debt. So it's actually a 194 billion. I'm going to move this. Actually, I can delete that now. I might leave it for now, but let me see if I can. Yeah, NVIDIA's success is incredible. All right. So on Intel, what I'm really trying to figure out is, you know, I think for Intel and Micron, I want to look at the semiconductor cycle. And this is something that has sort of doesn't exist anymore for NVIDIA. And that's where I kind of want to make sure that we haven't made the awful mistake of which happens in finance sometimes. It's basically one of the biggest mistakes you can make, which is you mistake cyclicality for permanent growth. And I don't want to do that. I know you don't want to do that. So we're going to try to figure that out. We haven't looked at Intel in a while. We kind of saw it as this kind of boring value stock that probably had some upside. They obviously had sort of a really, really big W or two. I'm going to close NVIDIA for now, believe it or not. Even though we're looking at NVIDIA, what I really want to do is understand long-term semi-cycles. And I'm going to go back in time. And I'm also going to do the same thing for Micron. And it's going to be a little tedious, but, you know, learning the history of your business is so important. Every time I talk to guys, I'll give you another example. You know, in biopharma, I kind of became like one of the most well-known guys in biopharma and one of the sharpest before the pharma bro bullshit, because I kind of tried to learn every company in biopharma history, including companies that have long been gone. And I did a funny analysis. I don't know if I have the file on me, but I did a historical biopharma. You know, let me see if I have it, because it's so interesting, I think. Give you an example of the lengths you have to go through. To really claim you understand your industry, I mean, you have to eat, breathe, and sleep it all the time. Here it is. Ah, I found it. Great. So this tracks every pharma merger from 1849 to modern time. And so these are all the companies that merged into Pfizer to create Pfizer. William R. Warner and Company. This became Warner Lambert through the merger of Lambert Pharmacal Company. That became Warner Lambert. So William R. Warner Company was founded in 1856. Lambert wasn't founded until 1881, but eventually they merged a long time from now. They renamed William Warner Company Warner Hudnut, and they merged in 1956 to create Warner Lambert. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to anybody, American Home Products was founded in 1860. John Wyeth and his brother, John and Frank Wyeth, founded that company in Philadelphia. And Arist, McKenna, and Harrison Limited was founded in 1925. American Home Products merged with Wyeth by just buying Wyeth. Stuart Wyeth, who was John Wyeth's son or brother, his son, died, left Wyeth to Harvard, of all places. Harvard sold American Home Products to Wyeth, or Wyeth to American Home Products, creating the bigger AHP. Now, if you've been around the industry, AHP was still public around 99, 2000. I used to trade AHP. So this is 1931. And there's Arist. American Home Products acquired Arist in 1943. So 1944, you have fairly big American Home Products. And we're going to put that on hold for now. And again, the point is, like, slowly but surely, Warner Lambert was public. It was WLA. Pfizer, if you notice, Pfizer's this little tiny guy in 1849, right? And all these other big companies are being created around Pfizer. So Pfizer's doing just about nothing. And then finally, the Pfizer-Warner Lambert merger in 2000 creates a major company. But Pharmacia was already, kind of developing, and American Home Products was developing. So the big deal in 2004 was Pfizer buying Pharmacia. Pharmacia was PHA. And American Home Products was still public, changed its name to Wyeth, of course. And then the monster deal in 2010.
To decide whether Trump legally deployed troops to Portland.
So Pfizer kept acquiring little companies like Medivation, Arena, Biohaven, Seattle Genetics, and that's where we're at in 2025. I have a few more of these to make, but the point is, knowing your industry's history is something that's important. I also know the drugs that these companies made. Warner Lambert was actually the inventor of Lipitor. And if the more history you know, when you meet people, if you know the people behind it, it's obviously not important to know the people from 1850, but who was the CEO of Warner Lambert? Is he on any boards right now? Is he giving any talks? Maybe you can go to a talk. And, the CEO of Warner Lambert talk is going to have 8 people attending it, whereas the CEO of Pfizer talk is going to have 300 people attending it at your local college. But you could probably, get a word in with the guy who was the CEO of Warner Lambert if he visits your college. So the point is, knowing all these names actually makes it, a lot easier to network, and when you bump into somebody, it helps. So Intel, it's no different in any sector. So in financial technology, which I'm somewhat new to, I have a financial technology startup. I've been studying the how S&P Global, for example, was made through mergers from McGraw-Hill. And, it was a very fascinating thing how S&P Global became what's basically the largest fintech in the world now, bigger than even Bloomberg. So knowing the history of all that, I think, really, really helpful and important. So let's see if we can get the revenue from Intel from as far back, basically, as we can go. And I just want to see kind of how Intel navigated this cyclical growth thing that happened to them. Because it sort of feels like, in some ways, the same thing here, just a much bigger, obviously, inflation adjusted, and in other ways, it's a much bigger kind of situation. So let me see if I can get the 10K we're missing, which is 2005. And again, this is all really helpful if you're gonna make your name as a pharma or biotech or semiconductor analyst. You should know approximately what was the size of Intel in 2005. What was the clock speed around that time? What was the wafer size? What was the the etch size, the technology size? How big was the transistor at the time? Where did they make it? All of those things, you should understand and know your history. Now, it's more important you know the present details, right? But don't skip out on the history, because that's one, it tends to repeat itself, and then two, no man is an island. I mean, you have to meet people, shake their hands, get to make contacts, be friendly, and when you share your insights, people say, "Well, that guy really knows his stuff. He needs a haircut, but he's good at that." And that's the kind of thing that will benefit you greatly. So study your industry as hard as you can, and you will. I guarantee you'll make some success. All right. Yeah, Intel, like a lot of other companies, spent a lot of cash buying back shares instead of buying other companies. Intel reduced their share count here from 5 billion or 6 billion, 6.5 billion to 4 billion. Well, it's great for the shareholder, but they much rather would have bought NVDA, right? you know, and they don't have to buy all of NVIDIA. I mean, this is the funny thing. Companies really are dumb when it comes to this stuff. I think corporate America has this terrible disease where they don't understand that, like, you can buy unsolicited 5, 10%, 15, 20% of a company. Nothing's stopping you. Nothing's stopping you. There's a company you admire in the sector, buy 10% of it. What's the big deal? You know, but there's this frustration that, you know, most CEOs don't know how to invest, and they don't want to learn how to invest, and they don't trust anybody else to invest, and the boards are no good about it either. And it feels like, you know, what it's not the real core use of cash in the first place. So why do that? Well, what's a buyback? What the hell is a buyback? You know, buyback is just a tax-free dividend. And we're gonna see if we can put plot NVIDIA's revenue onto this as well. But let's go down to 2002 now. We're going to see what years there was some. I'm going to probably put them in gray or something. I don't know. Let's try that. Light yellow, light red. I don't know. Some cyclicality here. Let's keep going. There's also a time when these companies stopped reporting their annuals in the Form 10K and actually had an extra attachment somewhere else. Okay, so here's another big cyclical period. This is the period I remember very fondly because it was really disastrous. And it probably set the stage in many ways for NVIDIA's ascent. It began the ascent of NVIDIA. They were obviously unrelated, but, you know, NVIDIA was kind of lying in wait here. And probably the distraction of this big cyclical drop where, you know, people were really scared. I mean, there was a question of how far back would we backslide economically? And, you know, when would the pain end? You know, everyone was talking about the hard landing, soft landing, V-shaped recovery. You know, people worried it was going to be L recovery, no recovery, just drop and stay down there. So, you know, it was a bad time at the time. It's really not great. And, you know, fear tends to pervade, you know, at times like that. So Intel was really profitable in 2000, but it was also the beginning of the end in 2000. All right, so let's keep going here. And again, you know, they had 7 billion shares outstanding. They decided they wanted to, you know, use all this cash. I mean, every year, 8 billion, 4 billion, 4 billion, 7 billion, 8 billion, 8 billion, 3 billion, 6 billion, 7 billion, 5 billion, 11 billion, 12 billion. What'd they do with any of this cash? Nothing. They bought back their shares at prices that were way too high, that would end up dropping. You know, you buy back your stock if you think it's cheap, but what the hell do you know about investing? If you knew anything about investing, you would have bought NVIDIA stock. So, you know, it's just kind of this, you know, corporate America is terrible at strategy and mergers and acquisitions. And sometimes, you know, you'll get a CEO who's really good and they'll actually deliver the goods. And they're just brilliant and they know how to do both. But, you know, investing traditionally is, you know, one thing, but then deciding, okay, this is a great company, I want to have a part of it, that's kind of a different job altogether. So look at the big boom here. This was like massive boom time. Look at the revenue. No, wait, hold on. This was a big boom time. But revenue jumped from 25 to 33 before cratering a bit. 25, 070, 26, 273, 29, 389. And then again, you had this big decline. Let's see if I can get rid of this. But that was a big stretch. I think there was another cyclical period in 94. But let me fill these out real quick. Take 2 seconds. And there was a split. Stock splits were also in vogue at the time. Americans wanted cheap shares. Nobody wanted a $1,000 share. Now it's the opposite. And again, 7.2 billion shares outstanding, all the way down to 4 billion. Huge waste of capital. But again, a company had no idea what to do with the rest of their money. They could have gone into they could have gone to foundry. They could have gone into manufacturing equipment. They could have gone into anything but what they did, which is, take their stock and buy back shares. Yeah, it's real cringe stuff. But again, easy to say with hindsight, right? Easy to say, oh yeah, what I would have done was this. Well, you're not Andy Grove, I guess. Who were the CEOs of Intel? Andy Grove, Craig Barrett. That comes to mind. Does anyone remember that name? Sort of different tenures. All right. So here is the mega growth. So 20% growth there. So this is kind of analogous to maybe what NVIDIA is going through now, this period, the 90s. But I want to go back even further. So yeah, here's the 40%, 20%, 29%, 20%. This is Windows 95, Wintel dominance. Revenue grows from 11 billion to 34 billion. Now, we know that NVIDIA did way more than that, right? So we're going to see if we can, no pun intended, parallelize. NVIDIA makes parallel processors. Parallelize this a little bit and see if we can find some interesting parallels. But there's actually a term in data sort of engineering where you're trying to, let me see if I get the split amount. I think it was maybe 8-for-1. Where you're trying to get time series to fit over each other, and you like adjust them slightly so that like pauses or delays in those time series can get sort of swallowed up and recreated. All right, so 96. It's probably 8-for-1. And it's funny, they did better when they weren't buying back stock. When they were letting their share count grow, buybacks are kind of contrary indicators. When they were doing buybacks, well, that was the top, because when you got nothing to do with your stock and you're not growing fast, buybacks are kind of like, oh, again, very, very cringe. I mean, you're buying back your stock at the height of your success. What do you think is going to happen? And it may look smart in a few years, but does it look smart in 10 years? Does it look smart in 20 years? That's kind of what matters. And that's where I think we'll really understand where NVIDIA is going here. And it's not easy, right? It's not like this is going to give us the answer. This is going to give us a clue if we're lucky. So we have a wrong number here. 406, 415, 273. Okay. Got it. All right, let me double check this split. It must have been 8-for-1, but I just want to. There was a 2-for-1. Another 2-for-1. I don't know. I'm just going to assume that was it. The numbers add up, so. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 2-for-1s. I don't know. It has to be right. Let's Let's go back to 93. I am 10 years old. So I'm reading gaming magazines, PC magazines, and things like that, but I don't really know what the hell is going on. And Intel, a much younger company here at just 8 billion in revenue. And look at this, look at this. This really does maybe remind of NVIDIA, because let's just do this for a second while we fill these out. So 91, 92, you know, Intel in essence is growing like a weed. So 20%, 22%, 50%, 31, 41, 29, 20, 6 years in a row of massive, you know, massive growth. So maybe I'll color that light green. Then you do have this slowdown here, right? 98, there was a stock market crash in essence. Even in 94, there was some Asian contagion, but that didn't stop Intel. And 99, 2000, the growth was again double digits. And it's good to save these because, I mean, once you've done it once, you have it forever. If you ever want to look at AMD, you know, you can kind of get a sense from the AMD Intel wars of yore. Okay, and here is another split. So 16 shares go 16x. Incredible what splits can do. And again, the share count's going up, not going down. They're not buying back shares. They're letting the options grants dominate. And, you know, company thinks that, oh, well, you know, once we have tons of cash, we can buy back those options. But it's like, actually, you're better off just issuing lots more, getting your workforce organized and excited about the next thing you can do. Intel wisely always avoided quantum, by the way. They have a small quantum group, but they always were suspicious of quantum, which is the one thing they did right. But they, you know, they got into a ton of missteps. They kind of got into Ethernet networking, and that never became really big for them. And we all know Intel's missteps, and it's easy, again, to say, in hindsight, what happened, what went wrong. All right, so we have all the way back to 94 here. It's going to be a little tricky to get maybe more. We'll try. My databases aren't exactly cooperating, but I think I can do it. Might have to go to the microfilm for this one. All right. That's odd. Internet's your friend, right? You could just search. Intel 1990 10K. Intel has a historical archive on their website that goes back. It's kind of memory lane. This is what you used to do, and the college I went to, we had a reading room of all these old annual reports. So you'd go find them there or something like that. Bob Noyce, one of the Treacherous 8 or Treacherous 7, what was it? There's Craig Barrett and Andy Grove. I don't know microprocessor lore, but there was the Fairchild. .32-bit systems. Okay, here's our income statement. All right, so again, some lovely growth here in the 90s, early 80s, or early 90s, late 80s. Again, kind of reminiscent of NVIDIA's scaled differently. I mean, that is 0, I guess, because the world economy was just less mature at the time. What am I doing here? I'm missing a year. There we go. And now we have to scale the shares outstanding by 32. They've split so much that yeah, 32%. 32x, excuse me. Shares outstanding growth. So, you know, buybacks in the scheme of things didn't even dent those in a way. And now you see shares outstanding kind of growing rapidly instead of shrinking rapidly. It's very telling that, you know, you had this dilution that occurred as they grew so fast and their employees, you know, got all these stock options that no doubt, you know, there were many Intel millionaires made. You know, if you were walking around Silicon Valley and so I was at Intel, you know, I'm a senior guy at Intel. I was there for the last 10 years. People would say, oh, wow, that guy's got to be rich, doing real well. Now you say something like that and you say, oh, poor guy. Feel bad for you, pal. I got a boatload of worthless Intel stock options. All right, so two more 20% years. So basically Intel had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 20% plus growth years, including a 50 and a 40. But 89 was a little slow. And again, when you're growing that fast, just growing 9% is actually kind of, I would say that's a cyclical downturn. But let's look at 87. Intel goes back far. I mean, this is the company that made the microprocessor, so we got more and more and more to go. It won't be too long if you can't wait. Cover photo. If you can't wait, you have ADHD. Investing takes a while. Intel's most advanced microprocessor, the 386. This is a 386. You know, 1987. I was 4 years old. I was playing on Apple IIe's maybe, but not this. 275,000 transistors. There's trillions of transistors now. Capable of running DOS and Unix simultaneously. Woo! and also takes advantage of software developed for the 86 series. Major growth at this era too. And here's actually, in some ways, all that we want right here. So maybe we can. I hate to cut this short, but I know a lot of people have ADHD. So let's just. This is the kind of stuff I really enjoy. It's crazy. All right. 1265, 1365, 1629. This is what it takes to be good, in my opinion. 1122. Now, this is Intel's first $1 billion year. $789, $855. Here's a period of very slow growth there. And again, some of this is product and some of it is the economy. All right, so 51% growth that year. And some of it is shipments and stuff like that. I mean, but you can see here there was some serious slowdowns. Here there was the 85-86. What happened in 85-86? Anybody remember? Was that the crash? Is that the 84 crash? Okay. So, Intel, this is sort of reminiscent of NVIDIA, right? Growing from 400 in revenue to 4 billion. That took 13 years, and then 4 billion to 40 billion. Maybe a little less successful than NVIDIA, but still meteoric kind of success. Some years, early years, they're going up 60%. And again, we're not done. There were microprocessors. Well, this is around the time Intel got founded. We're getting pretty close to the start of the company. So let's see how they overlap. It'll be kind of interesting, at least. Was the first product the 8086 or 8088 or 4044, something like that. I forgot what it was called. But let's check out this guy. And see if you think this matches what Quantum looked like. Large scale integrated circuits. Okay, yeah, here's all the rest we need here. So 78. $1969, 600,000 in revenue. Okay, let's see if we can overlap NVIDIA here somewhere. Ah, there we go. There's a few ways to do this, but let me do it. This way. I have to go back in time more for NVIDIA, or let's see if I can get NVIDIA's 99 fiscal or 2009 1999 NVIDIA 1999 annual report or 10K. Well, that's just on sec.gov. 99 Jensen Huang, 39 years old. Marvin Burkett, 60. One of their CFOs went to jail. I don't know if it was him or not. But it's funny. Do you know any of these people? Does anybody ever heard of any of these people? Jeffrey Fisher, David Shannon, Dee Ma. It's a very interesting point that whom amongst us remembers these? Okay, 99 they did 158. Just gonna leave that there. 99 fiscal year 99. Let me see if I can get fiscal 98. Nope. Well, maybe this will give me revenue if I look far back enough. No, I don't think so. Xbox was a big product, I guess. Do they go public then? I'm gonna try sec.gov, see what happens. sec.gov is a little busted right now, actually. 10Q, but not 10K. What the fuck? Okay. There's the S1 for NVIDIA. That might have the details. S8. Maybe first S1. This will be fun to read. The head of Wilson Sonsini was still Larry Sonsini. It's a big law firm. They're raising $40 million. Can you imagine? That's a seed round today. NVIDIA designs the Riva 128 graphics processor. I'm going to throw that in my model just in case I ever meet an old NVIDIA guy and say, do you know what the Riva 128 was? Was that any good? Let's see, what was this? 1996? March 6, 98. 1998. Well, I guess they reincorporated Delaware, filed IPO, Riva 128 product. Wonder how many transistors that had, or if it was doing parallel processing. Okay. Okay, here it is from dawn of the company. Oh, they had normal fiscal years back then. Didn't know that. So, okay, let me see. Well, we should be able to recreate the whole thing. I don't know when they went to a bizarre fiscal year, but 12/31, 1997. $3 million in revenue there, $1 million in revenue there. Fiscal year 96, fiscal year 95, 12/31/96, 12/31/95. Okay. First, okay, here's a 10K. It's 10K 405. Sometimes they had these weird appendages. Then I had the Riva TNT. I kind of remember this thing? Kinda? Accelerated graphics port. Okay, it says invention of the GPU 1999. I don't know if that's right, but regardless. Riva 128ZX. I wonder if you could find one of these on eBay. Somebody can find one of those on eBay. Maybe send it over to me. I'll buy it and frame it. SGI. Everyone in Silicon Valley should know what SGI was. Wow. January 31st, 1999. We had 248 employees. Jesus. Can you imagine? Imagine quitting. I don't like this. Making video games. It's silly. Jensen Wong, 36. Oh, to be 36. Chris Malachowski. What's he doing right now? What's Chris Malachowski doing right now? Let's take a look. Boss. You're American electric engineer and billionaire businessman. Oh, wasn't this the guy that invented CUDA? Isn't this the CUDA guy? He co-founded NVIDIA in 93. Okay. I'll write his name down. Isn't he Mr. CUDA? Co-founder. Okay, let's take a look at who else. Christine Hoberg. Oops. Oh, this is the... Oh. This lady stepped in shit. How many other CFOs got charged with shit? Like, I think this is two or three times. NVIDIA was lagging behind expectations. In order to meet those expectations, they entered into agreement with supplier. Yeesh. Sucks that she's now known for this, right? Okay, Jeff Fisher. Senior Vice President at NVIDIA. Jesus, look at this. Look at this guy. Experience, Senior Vice President, 31 years. This guy's still there? Director of Sales. He was at Adaptech. Really funny. The hell? No photo. Just... Can I follow him? Maybe we'll see if he can... Well, maybe he'll connect. Who knows? You never know, right? NVIDIA's first salesperson. There he is. Before it had any products. At the time, NVIDIA employed 25 people. So technically, he's employee 26, right? And again, these people are still alive. You can call them up. You can find them. They're not, you know... I'm sure some of them are friendly. Don't go knock on their door, but... Mark Allen. This guy's unknown. It's got just such a generic name. That's Englewood, Colorado. Is this the guy? That's definitely not him. I think this is him. Maybe. This is NVIDIA Auditorium, but it's not him. guy was disappeared from the internet. Mark K. Allen. He was at C-Cube. Okay, that maybe we'll look for that. C-Cube Microsystems. That'll tell us. Okay, this is interesting. There he is. That looks more like somebody that was at NVIDIA in the 90s. Okay, he joined Kleiner Perkins. Oh, he was Transmeta. Okay, did he start Transmeta? I remember Transmeta vaguely. He left NVIDIA for Transmeta. Big mistake. But Transmeta has its own history. And he became CEO of Transmeta. He still would have been better off staying at NVIDIA. Mark Allen left to become CEO of Transmeta. Curtis Preem. Co-founded NVIDIA as well. So he would have been employee number 2. You're starting a hedge fund. These are the guys to call. Curtis Preem, co-founder. Left the company in 2003, sold all his shares in 2006. RIP. Ow. He was a senior staff engineer at Sun, where he developed the GX graphics chip. Sun and SGI were, I guess, the two main guys. Retired in 2003. Got it. Net worth, oh, Jesus Christ. Forbes estimated Preem's net worth to be approximately $30 million. Not bad. If he had retained his shares in NVIDIA, Forbes estimated Preem would have been worth $70 billion. Well, in 2004, he donated $40 million to the institute, to his old college, RPI. So I think he's all right. I think he's all right. Don't sell. No. Why? Okay, month end. What is this? Month ended January 1st, 1998. Why are you reporting a month of revenue for me? Why do you do this? Have you guys ever seen this in a financial statement? This is why they're financial. They should go to jail for this. Month ended 1998. I'm sure NVIDIA CFOs are nice people, but what the F is this? Month ended? Month ended? Like I give a fuck what December revenue was? I just want to know what 98 revenue was. And I can just make it up. You know what? They made up numbers, I'll make up the numbers. How about that? Now there should be a January full year here. I love these old ASCII 10Ks. They're pretty funny. But yeah, I really love doing research into the starts of companies. I've been doing this for a long time. I look at the first people who were at Google and OpenAI and other companies. It doesn't have to just be, oh my God, they still do the month end down here. I mean, this is not enough to make you scream. 1 month of revenue. This is a joke, right? You're trolling me, right? I might have to impute it. I hate to do this, but might have to be imputed. You know what? There's also GPT. GPT is a pretty good search engine. NVIDIA 1998 revenue. Nope. Okay. No, that's not right. I have that. What was NVIDIA's revenue in fiscal year 1998? No, how about the year prior to that? Uh, 13.3? Did it go down? I guess it went down. And the year prior to that? I mean, it could have just gone down. Couldn't locate it. Right, neither can I. I can't find it. Do you want me to dig? Yes, I want you to dig. Of course. That's exactly what I'm asking you to do. All right, let me check this out. All right, maybe we just leave it at that. Okay, now what do we do with this? We're going to take this and we're going to stagger it over Intel's start. We'll see who did better, and we'll also see how do we think about it from an inflationary perspective. Do we adjust? I think we would have to adjust for inflation, which we can do fairly easily. We can do a dollar value. What was the value of a dollar in 1969 to annually from 1969 to 1979? Okay. 30 adjustment factors, 3668. Wait, should it go the other way? $2013. Okay, this makes a little more sense. 880, 830, 790, 770, 730, 666, 570, 530, 497, 446, 393. Nope. This times that. This is eerie. And you can imagine these metrics would actually be useful for other comparisons you might make in the past. So this year, this is 134.97 for, okay, so this year be 197.220. And people are estimating, call it 300 for next year, really. Although that number, 300, even 300 is going to be too small, I think. So technically, Intel still kind of outperformed NVIDIA. But let's see. Oh, well, up until here, and then NVIDIA takes off like a rocket. And then there's no contest. I'll show you the chart in a second. This is going to be an interesting tweet. Missed one. Let's see. 183, 178, 172, 165, 160. This is kind of extrapolated as well. There's a lot of inflation recently. Okay. Helpful? Need a log chart. Probably, right? How do we do a log chart? Anybody know? Scale. There we go. Wow. Wow. Crazy. Look at that. You guys see this? The fuck? That is nuts. That is nuts. My intuition was really, really interesting, right? How fucking crazy is that? This is a masterpiece. I mean, now the problem is, what can we infer? Nothing. Did we not adjust? No, we don't have to adjust. Do we have to adjust NVIDIA for inflation? I still like it. This is a really good fit. Fit's too good. Okay, let me see. Yeah, it wasn't. I guess I just have to calculate the post it anywhere. No, let's calculate the lag. So Intel's first year is 1969. So we change it to today's dollars. So we just have to do, how many years was that? 95. Okay. I think it's going to stay roughly the same relationship, by the way, but so this is 69 versus 95. So this is 26-year delay. I made it up. I try not to do that after, prison. Just kind of try to chill. Good thing is I can take all that, we already have all the data, so I can go to NVIDIA's first year, which again is 95. Copy pasta this. Yeah, it's going to mostly be the same. My lawyer was joking with my prosecutor, which I didn't like, that he's like, Martin's the most honest fraudster you'll ever meet. And the prosecutor's like, you're right, actually. I'm like, that's because I'm not a fraud. Fucks. Assholes. Okay, barely changed it. You adjusted. I did. I just adjusted it for inflation to the. Yeah, I guess if you do you still need the first 24 years of inflation that didn't overlap. After that, you don't have to adjust anymore. There's just one problem. CPI is fake. Well, that's true. That's true, actually. If you remove the last value, you could argue that it's not going to be much higher, but I do think that they are going to meet that value. I mean, Jensen said they have 5 billion, and